Hello and welcome. I'm Minister Deborah Robinson, the former host of WNVN TV's Closer Look and Solutions with Deborah. And I have the honor today of speaking with our Halifax County Sheriff, Wes Tripp, and a founding charter member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and long-standing servant here in Halifax County, the Reverend Dr. C.E. McCollum. And I thank those guys and all of the visionaries who have come together to invite you, Halifax County, Northampton County, Nash, and surrounding counties, to be heard at the upcoming Halifax Northampton Community Wellness Forum. Now, that forum will be held on Sunday, July 31st at 3 p.m. at the Roanoke Rapids Theatre. And the Roanoke Rapids Theatre is located off of Interstate 95 at exit 171 in Roanoke Rapids. As you know, communities across the United States are finding themselves riddled with fears and anguish over the most recent and senseless loss of human life. And so it's imperative that the myths that support discrimination, segregation, and all acts of hate must be dismantled from the mind and then into the mainstream. With that understanding, these organizers of the Community Wellness Forum and Movement are community leaders from the secular and faith-based arenas who have joined together to assure our safety and to remove the fears that our citizens and law enforcement encounter daily, not only across the United States, but right here in our own county, here in eastern North Carolina. It is their desire that you join with them in a peaceful, a purposeful, a meaningful, and authentic dialogue session, expressing your feelings, asking your questions, and offering your advice, while respectfully finding ways to agree that there must be a change of mindset if solutions are going to be met here to eradicate the tragedies that plague our nation, community by community. Sheriff, I am so glad to be here. I thank you for allowing me to come and be a community voice and get an open line to this movement that you all have put in action. We've held other community forums here. You have worked before in that area, and so has our other guest, Reverend McCollum. So how can you tell this community, how can you motivate us into knowing that there's a greater purpose designed for this movement than ever before in this county?
First of all, thank you, Deborah, for hosting this, and we appreciate all your input in this. And the biggest thing, my platform has always been availability and accessibility. And this is a movement. It's a movement for better communication and better understanding. Our citizenry is going to have some questions, and we understand that, and we want to answer those questions. We want to clear up any doubts, but the key is communication, and that's why it's going to be better than any other forum we've had, and so that we can communicate and get those questions answered so people feel comfortable with their law enforcement here in Halifax and Northampton counties.
Mm. And so as we open the mics to our citizens and law enforcement, how do you, as the sheriff, set in motion a consensus for diffusing the raging emotions and fears that are going on right now?
The first way we diffuse that is the way we set this forum up. When talking with Mr. Hubert Pope and Dr. McCollum, we talked about this idea, and my suggestion was that law enforcement be neutral, that our facilitators carry out the forum. law enforcement will be on stage, I along with Sheriff Jack Smith and the other police chiefs in Halifax County, to answer questions. But we want it facilitated by our community leaders. We want it to be sincere, humbling, and that's what our plan is.
Sheriff, there are many people that feel as though their voice has never been heard and doesn't make a difference. Whether because it's because of disparities environmentally or educationally, or possibility just the disabilities that hinder expression. As the sheriff, what would you like for one living in that manner? What would you like for them to know that would help change their perspective about the need for their input in such a movement?
Well, to go back to the very beginning, availability and accessibility. I want to put a new face on law enforcement. I want to put a friendlier face on law enforcement. And I and my deputies get out into the community at different forums and different functions, and we're being seen. And that's how we fight crime, is visibility. And when I say fight crime, we're out there showing the good folks that we are a friend. And with that also, I have an open door policy. Dr. McCollum and I have talked with community people on some issues, and we've been able to resolve that. But it all goes back to communication. We might not always agree, but we can agree sometimes to disagree, but the key to it is that communication.
And lastly, Sheriff, what measure at the July 31st forum will be put in place by the department that will content our community that their concerns will be somehow documented to assure that going forward there'll be data that will assist in problem solving and ongoing strategies as it relates to effective policing?
That's a very good question, Deborah, and I thank you for that. As the elected sheriff, I'm accountable every day. And in that accountability, I'm responsible for the citizens of Halifax County, 54,000 people. And accountability is where it's at. We take whatever we get from this forum and these concerns, and we do our homework with that. And part of that is we may see where we need more training. We may see where we need more physical training for officers' endurance. We do have in-service training every year. We have also training for juvenile and minority sensitivity. We may see where we need more shoot, don't shoot seminars. So I assure the community, whatever concerns they have, it will be well documented, and we'll address them at that forum, but when we leave that forum, we'll put them into play. And we'll make sure that our community feels safe with the law enforcement here in Halifax County. And I just want to say also that I am so proud of our partnership with the faith-based community. Without God, we're nothing. And that's how I'm able to do my job, is my belief in God. And it just makes it so much easier to have friends like Dr. McCollum. And words can't express how appreciative we are to have such a fine, godly man in Halifax County.
Thank you, thank you. And Reverend McCollum, being a pastor, viewed as a trusted servant, having a bit of a more personal walk with various personalities and emotions than possibly a sheriff, though he is a very personalized sheriff. How will you encourage involvement in this July 31st community wellness movement with folks from all walks of the community, from our lower income housing to somewhat our Becker Farm mansions?
Deborah, thank you so much for being here and being a part of what we're trying to do and getting out in front of issues so that our community is not affected. We're seeing more positive policing now, with the sheriff, innovation with body cameras for all the officers. There was some complaints before, but those complaints have been addressed, not only by him, but the other police chiefs are implementing these same checks so that they can make sure that they're having better customer service. Now, I think that a lot of times we over-sensationalize some things, and it's not that we're blind to the fact that there are disparities and inequalities. We know that they exist, and this is why we're working so hard to bring all people together. I wish there was a moratorium, even from gang members, that say, we got to stop the madness. We're looking at what 2 officers may have done in Louisiana, down in Baton Rouge. We're looking at what another officer has done in other places. And we're looking at one lone sniper that ambushed the police in Dallas. And we can't just paint everyone with the same picture, color, and do like they formerly did in the old days, just round up every black face they could find and make us all villainized. And so if the community can come together with an understanding that there's not a fence between us, we are neighbors, and we ought to act like neighbors and look out for neighbors. And yes, we are different colors, but we are the same people. Under the skin, all of us beat the same kind of heart, and we bleed the same way. And so if we can get beyond these divisiveness that seems to grab our attention from across the nation, and we're not saying condoning nothing that we've seen in violence. We're not, we support law enforcement. We need law enforcement, but we need it to be fair, and then we need it to be equitable. We don't need to see 1 out of 5 people who are being black stopped, or 5 out of whatever numbers that we're looking at. Racial profiling. A young man that was killed by a police officer because of a broken tail light that got out of hand. The sheriff is welcome, say, well, the permit to carry, but the permit to carry and then get killed because you are carrying. So we need to slow it down and put some checks in place so that we can all live together in peace and harmony and let the communities come together as God would have it to be.
And that brings to light my next question to you. In the face of fear being a major factor, promoting negative attitudes, behaviors, perceptions, how will you, as a pastor and community leader, how will you assure this community that this movement will address their issues of safety, and not only safety, but their feelings of fear?
You know, it's striking that you would ask that question, because a lot of our young people have told me that they are afraid to walk the streets. And so we need to disarm our community and not stereotype people because of the way that they dress. Or we are not to stereotype them and think and villainize them because of maybe our cultures are different. What if we could have a cultural revolution where we could start seeing people as people and not being invisible? And then the fear factor come in, but when you stereotype certain people and make them evil because of the way they look, a hoodie could make a person look villainized. And that's a misconception about the commonness of humanity. Make these young, we know we don't always like to see our young people who are dressed in the way that they do with the pants swagging, but we want to show common respect to everybody and be surprised that some of those young people are people with respect for other people. And so I think Kobenex framed it well when he talks about disarming people with respect.
In our community, my challenge is that we be kind, that we be courteous, that we be respectful to one another. The Bible states very clearly that God is no respecter of persons. And if God's no respecter of persons, I certainly do not want to be guilty of that.
And then we can respect one another. I don't have to like you, but I can respect you. Yes. And so this is what we're hoping that we can foster and bridge the divide that could tear our county apart. It's tearing our nation apart. So we got to find a solution to bring our people together and say, we are our neighbor, I'm my brother's keeper. What affects our sheriff affects me.
Yes.
What affects you affects me, because we're all in this together. So if we can bring the communities together and look at each other with earnestness and say, you know, let's stop the foolishness. Let's start accepting people. Let's work towards the common good of everybody. Let's look at the disparities. Let's look at the inequitabilities that we're seeing being portrayed in our county. Let's see if we can level the playing field and then bring all people together.
Yes. There's another side, there's another group of people, Reverend, I'm sure you're aware of. I'm talking about a law-abiding citizen. They may not be a member of the clergy, may not even attend church, but a good citizen, law-abiding citizen, not necessarily an elected official or a business owner, maybe just a great parent or one who possesses great people skills or just having a great demeanor about themselves. How important is it, and how will you let them know that it is no time for the big I's and little U's, that they are needed in this movement?
Everyone is needed to participate in this movement. We've been hearing so much divisive rhetoric here in the last year or two. We're afraid of people. We're afraid of anybody that calls themselves a Muslim. We're stigmatizing people, and we're talking about isolated situations that do great harm, even in California. You know, when this couple, married couple that was extremist radicals, killed a lot of people. But you don't stigmatize all Islam because of that. And we don't do that even if he's an atheist, but he's law-abiding and respectable. Let's accept people for who they are. And it shocked me just recently when a young white boy in Fresno, California, got killed, but nobody made a great alarm about that. You know, he was. And then they said it's going to be suicide by cop. Well, we don't know that. But you're going to make some assumption, but there's no great upcry about what happened to that young boy. So why can't we be all inclusive rather than being exclusive? This is yours and or this is mine. Why isn't it ours? This is our country. This is our home. This is our county. Let's don't let people make us afraid of each other so that we got this great divide growing. But rather than seeing the community together. That's what the Wellness Community Forum is all about, is to bring people together and say, let's heal ourselves.
Yes.
Let's reach out to our brothers and sisters. Let's heal ourselves. And let's change the whole culture of this community so that we can learn to live together, or Dr. King says, or perish like fools.
I think about you as a faith-based personality. How important in this movement is faith-based policing, where all hearts and minds are going to be heard and received, and voices respectfully considered.
That's the wonderful thing about what we're seeing changing in our community. Our sheriff is a Christian, a man of faith. I met the chief of police from Roanoke Rapids, Chuck Hastings, a Christian.
Yes.
Mark Macomb, Chief Mark Macomb out of Welland, a Christian and a preacher.
Yes.
And so they hold up these standards and say, not on my watch. No longer, not on my watch. These are faith-based law enforcement officers whom I've become very proud of, and proud to be associated with guys like this, because I know that their hearts are there. And they're fostering change. That's not the good old boy network that we used to know in days gone by. I've never came in this office in this smoke field, the cigars and all that. It's always a level of professionalism And I thank God that we got Christian men like Sheriff West Tripp. Sheriff, you're a great man, and I'm just proud to have the relationship that we have, and I'm seeing our law enforcement change for the good and for the better.
So come out and be a part of the solutions at your Halifax, Northampton Community Wellness Forum. This is for our communities collectively, Sunday, July 31st at 3 o'clock p.m. at the Roanoke Rapids Theatre, located on Interstate 95 at exit 171 in Roanoke Rapids. Now, for more information on this forum and any other assistance, Sheriff Tripp has provided a contact number for your convenience. That number is 252-578-6761. And Reverend McCollum has left us with a number to leave a message for him, and he will respond promptly. That number is 252-535-4442. We'll be looking for you at the forum.